I never imagined that a simple bill in the mail would unravel my entire life. My name is Mike Thompson, and this is the story of how I discovered that the woman I'd loved for 17 years had been living a complete double life. One so elaborate and calculated that it would eventually bring down not just our marriage, but an entire health-care fraud conspiracy. It was a Thursday morning in November when everything changed. I was sitting at my kitchen table in our Jones Valley home, drinking coffee and sorting through the mail before heading to Dynetics Incorporated, where I worked as a senior project manager on NASA contracts. The morning routine was familiar. Emma had left early for what she called a regional sales meeting in Nashville. Ashley was getting ready for her advanced physics class. And Jordan was wolfing down cereal before basketball practice. "Dad, can you pick me up from practice tonight?" Jordan asked, his mouth full of Cheerios. "Sure thing, buddy." "What time?" 7:30, Mom said she might not be back until late. I nodded, used to Emma's increasingly demanding travel schedule. As a pharmaceutical sales rep for Medtronic, covering the cardiac device territory for North Alabama and Tennessee, she'd been pulling longer hours and more overnight trips over the past 2 years. Her success was undeniable. Her bonus checks had been substantial, and she'd won several company recognition awards. "Ashley, you need a ride to school?" I called upstairs. "No thanks, Dad." Riding with Sarah, came her voice from the second floor. I returned to the mail, mechanically sorting bills from advertisements. Mortgage payment, utilities, credit card statements, all routine. Then I saw an envelope that made me pause. Secure space storage with an address I didn't recognize. The amount on the bill was $180. I stared at the document, confused. We didn't have a storage unit. We'd never needed one. Our house had plenty of space, including a full basement and a 2-car garage. I checked the name on the bill again. Michael Thompson with our home address and my social security number. My first thought was identity theft. Someone had opened a storage unit using my information. I felt a familiar surge of anger. I'd spent years maintaining security clearances for my aerospace work, and any compromise of my personal information could affect my career. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number on the bill. "Secure space storage. This is Patricia." A cheerful voice answered. "Hi, I received a bill for a storage unit, but I don't have one with your company. I think someone might be using my identity." "I'm sorry to hear that, sir. Can you give me the unit number and your name?" "Unit 247. And my name is Michael Thompson." I heard keyboard clicking. "Yes, Mr. Thompson. You've had this unit for about 2 years now. The account is current. Autopay from a checking account." My blood ran cold. "That's impossible. I've never rented a storage unit." "Sir, I understand your concern. Would you like to come in and verify the account information? You'll need to bring photo ID." "Yes, absolutely. What's your address?" She gave me the location about 15 minutes from my house in a direction I rarely traveled. I grabbed my keys and driver's license, my mind racing. If someone was using my identity, I needed to get to the bottom of it immediately. The storage facility was a sprawling complex of beige buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing. I found the office and walked inside, where a middle-aged Hispanic woman sat behind a desk covered with rental agreements and coffee-stained paperwork. "You must be Mr. Thompson," she said, standing up. "I'm Patricia Martinez, the manager. I pulled your file." She handed me a folder. Inside was a rental agreement with my signature, or what looked very much like my signature. The date was November 15th, 2 years ago. Listed as an alternate contact was Emma Thompson with her cell phone number. "This is my wife's phone number," I said slowly. Patricia nodded. "She's been here several times. Very nice lady. Always pays on time." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "Can I see the unit?" "Of course, you have access. Obviously, the code is 2847. She led me outside and pointed toward a row of storage units. Building C, about halfway down, Unit 247. I walked toward the building in a daze, my mind struggling to process what I'd learned. Emma had rented a storage unit using my name and social security number. She'd been coming here for 2 years. But why? What could she possibly need to store that she couldn't keep at home? Unit 247 was a standard roll-up door with an electronic keypad. I punched in the code Patricia had given me and the lock clicked open. I grabbed the handle and rolled the door up. What I saw inside made my legs weak. The 10 by 15 space was meticulously organized like a carefully curated museum exhibit. Along the left wall were clear plastic storage boxes, each labeled with dates. Along the right wall was furniture I'd never seen before, a small love seat, a coffee table, decorative lamps, and covering the back wall were dozens of photographs. I stepped inside, my heart pounding. The photos were all of Emma, but not the Emma I knew. These showed her with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, dark-haired, handsome in the way that doctors often are. They were clearly romantic photos, embracing on a beach, sharing wine at fancy restaurants, kissing in front of landmarks I'd never visited. I moved closer to examine the images. The man appeared to be in his late 30s, well-dressed, confident. In several photos, he wore surgical scrubs or a white coat. A doctor, clearly at the bottom of many photos were locations and dates written in Emma's handwriting. Atlanta, March 2023. New Orleans, August 2023. Nashville, September 2023. I'd never been to any of these places with Emma. With shaking hands, I opened the first plastic storage box. Inside were more photos, but also hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and souvenirs. All from trips Emma had supposedly taken for work. A Marty Gr mask from New Orleans. A concert ticket from Nashville. A receipt from a 5-star restaurant in Atlanta. The dates on these items corresponded with times when Emma had told me she was attending pharmaceutical conferences or sales meetings. I opened another box. This one contained letters, handwritten notes in Emma's familiar cursive, and responses in masculine handwriting I didn't recognize. My hands trembled as I read one of Emma's letters. Brandon, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about what you said about us starting fresh in Nashville. I know it's complicated with Mike and the kids, but I think about our future together every day. The practice partnership you mentioned sounds amazing. We could finally be together without all this sneaking around. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone, Brandon. So that was his name. I picked up one of his replies. Emma, you know how much you mean to me. The cardiology practice is expanding and there's definitely a position for an experienced device sales rep. We just need to be patient a little longer. I've been looking at houses in Belm. There's one with enough bedrooms for Ashley and Jordan. I know this is hard, but we have to be smart about the timing. My vision blurred. They were planning a life together. They were planning to take my children. I forced myself to keep searching. The next box contained clothing, expensive lingerie, dresses I'd never seen Emma wear, jewelry that wasn't from me. A receipt showed a $2,000 necklace purchased in Nashville charged to a credit card I didn't recognize. But it was the fourth box that nearly brought me to my knees. Inside was a fireproof safe, the kind used for important documents. The combination lock was open. I lifted the lid and found neat stacks of cash, $20, $50, and $100 bills bundled with rubber bands. I quickly counted $50,000. Beneath the money were documents that made my blood freeze, copies of Ashley and Jordan's birth certificates, their social security cards, medical records, school transcripts, and at the bottom, business cards for divorce attorneys in Nashville. My marriage wasn't just ending. It had ended years ago. I just hadn't known it. I sat down on the small love seat, staring at the evidence surrounding me. Emma hadn't just been having an affair. She'd been systematically planning to leave me, take my children, and start a new life with this Brandon person. The storage unit was like a shrine to her double life, carefully maintained and organized with the same attention to detail she brought to her pharmaceutical sales. But something nagged at me about the money. $50,000 in cash wasn't something you accumulated from legitimate sources without your spouse knowing. Our finances were largely joint. I handled the mortgage and utilities. Emma managed the credit cards and household expenses. Where had this money come from? I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. If I was going to confront Emma about this, I needed documentation. As I photographed each item, each letter, each receipt, a cold fury began building in my chest. This wasn't just betrayal. It was fraud, theft, and potentially kidnapping conspiracy. The photographs with the doctor troubled me most. Brandon clearly worked in a hospital setting. Emma's job was selling cardiac devices to hospitals and cardiology practices. Was their relationship affecting her professional responsibilities? Was she using our marriage as cover while building a life with a client? I found more evidence of their professional relationship in another box. Correspondence between Emma and Brandon about medical device orders, speaker fees, and educational dinners. One email printout caught my attention. Brandon, the new stent technology presentation went perfectly. The $15,000 speaker fee will help with our plans. I've arranged for 3 more educational events this quarter. The Atlanta conference was great cover. Mike thinks I was in sales training all weekend. Can't wait for our Nashville trip next month. My hands clenched. She was using her pharmaceutical sales position to generate income for their affair, likely violating company policies and potentially federal regulations about healthcare kickbacks. The attorney business cards confirmed my worst fears. Each card was from a Nashville family law firm specializing in custody cases involving relocation. Someone had taken time to research the best legal representation for taking children across state lines. I spent another hour methodically documenting everything, taking hundreds of photos with my phone. The scope of Emma's deception was staggering. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a casual affair. It was a carefully planned exit strategy that had been in development for years. As I prepared to leave, I noticed a calendar tucked behind the larger storage boxes. It was Emma's handwriting tracking what appeared to be meetings and events. Dinner Atlanta conference cover Nashville device demo Birmingham. The entries went back 18 months showing a pattern of coordinated deception. I locked the storage unit and walked back to my car, my mind reeling. I needed to think clearly, strategically. Emma was supposed to return from Nashville that evening. I had maybe 8 hours to decide how to handle this discovery. My first instinct was to confront her immediately, to demand explanations and force the truth into the open. But my aerospace project management training kicked in. I needed more information before taking action. This was too big, too complex for a simple confrontation. I drove home in a fog, barely able to concentrate on traffic. When I arrived, the house felt different. Not like home, but like a stage set where I'd been unknowingly playing a role in someone else's script. I sat at my kitchen table and called my office. Mike Thompson's office. This is Jennifer. Jennifer, it's Mike. I need to take the rest of the day off. Family emergency. Of course, Mr. Thompson. I'll rescue you 2 o'clock with the NASA team. Is everything okay? I'll be fine. Thanks. I hung up and stared at my phone, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what I discovered. I needed help, but where to start? The money in the storage unit suggested potential criminal activity. The health care angle with Brandon indicated possible federal violations. The custody planning crossed state lines, which could involve federal kidnapping statutes. I decided to start with a lawyer. I found the contact information for Rebecca Foster, a family law attorney whose name I'd seen on some Chamber of Commerce materials. Her office was downtown, and she could see me that afternoon. An hour later, I sat in her conference room, showing her the photos I'd taken. Rebecca was a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with a kind of direct manner that suggested she'd seen everything. Mr. Thompson, before we go any further, I need to ask, how did you obtain these materials? I have legal access to the storage unit. It's rented in my name with my social security number. She nodded. That's important. Tell me exactly how you discovered this. I walked her through the morning's events from the bill to the storage unit discovery. She took notes and asked clarifying questions about dates, timelines, and the nature of the materials I'd found. This is complex, she said. Finally. We're looking at potential adultery, dissipation of marital assets, identity fraud, and possibly healthcare fraud. The interstate element complicates things significantly. What do you mean by healthcare fraud? Your wife is a pharmaceutical sales representative having a romantic relationship with a doctor who's apparently receiving speaking fees and ordering her products. That could violate federal anti-kickback statutes and Stark law provisions. The FDA and Department of Health and Human Services take these relationships very seriously. My stomach dropped. Are you saying Emma could face federal charges? I'm saying the evidence you found suggests activities that federal agencies investigate aggressively. The money alone, $50,000 in cash, raises questions about unreported income and potential tax evasion. Rebecca leaned forward. Mike, may I call you Mike? You have several decisions to make quickly. Your wife doesn't know you've discovered this yet. No, she's supposed to return from Nashville tonight. You need to decide whether to confront her directly or gather more evidence first. Given the federal implications, I'd recommend consulting with a private investigator who has experience with healthcare fraud cases. She gave me the contact information for James Parker, a former FBI agent who now worked private cases. James specializes in financial fraud and healthcare violations. He can help you understand the full scope of what you're dealing with. I left Rebecca's office with a list of action items and a sick feeling in my stomach. What had started as a billing error was rapidly becoming a federal case. I called James Parker from my car. His voice was grally professional. Mr. Thompson. Rebecca Foster said you might call. Can you come in this afternoon? Based on what she described, we need to move quickly. His office was in a nondescript building near the courthouse. James Parker looked exactly like Central Casting would order for an ex-FBI agent. Tall, grey-haired, with intelligent eyes that seemed to catalogue every detail. Show me what you found, he said without preamble. I pulled out my phone and walked him through the photos. He studied each image carefully, occasionally asking me to zoom in on specific details. This is significant, he said finally. Your wife and this doctor appear to be engaged in a conspiracy that violates multiple federal statutes. The speaker fees, the device sales, the romantic relationship. That's textbook anti-kickback violation. What exactly does that mean? The anti-kickback statute makes it illegal to knowingly and willfully offer, pay, solicit, or receive remuneration to induce referrals of items or services covered by federal health care programs. Medicare pays for these cardiac devices. If Dr. Brandon is ordering Emma's products because of their personal relationship, and if he's receiving speaking fees as part of that arrangement, they're both looking at potential federal felony charges. James pulled out a legal pad and started sketching a timeline. The Stark law prohibits physician self-referral for certain health care services. If Brandon is referring patients for procedures using Emma's devices while receiving personal benefits from her, that's another federal violation. But they're having an affair. Isn't that different from business fraud? Not when the affair is being used to influence medical decisions that affect federal health care spending. The Department of Health and Human Services has an Office of Inspector General that investigates exactly these kinds of cases. James leaned back in his chair. Mike, your wife isn't just cheating on you. She's potentially part of a health care fraud conspiracy that could result in years in federal prison for both her and Dr. Brandon. The room seemed to spin. What should I do? First, we need more information about Dr. Brandon. What's his full name? Where does he practice? What's the extent of their business relationship? Second, we need to secure the evidence you found. And third, you need to decide whether you're prepared to cooperate with federal authorities. Cooperate how? If this is healthcare fraud, the FBI and HHS too will want to investigate. Your evidence could be crucial to building a case, but once you report federal crimes, you can't control where the investigation goes. I thought about Ashley and Jordan. What happens to my children if Emma gets arrested? That depends on many factors. But Mike, if your wife is planning to relocate them to Nashville as part of this scheme, and if she's using fraudulently obtained money to finance that relocation, those children might be in more danger staying with her than they realize. I left James Parker's office with homework. He wanted me to research Dr. Brandon's background, document Emma's travel patterns, and gather financial records that might show the source of the cash I'd found. The drive home felt surreal. I was supposed to pick up Jordan from basketball practice in a few hours, help Ashley with her calculus homework, and pretend my wife wasn't planning to destroy our family while committing federal crimes. When I arrived home, I went straight to Emma's home office. If she was conducting business with Brandon, there might be records on her computer or in her files. I found her laptop in the desk drawer. It required a password, but I knew Emma well enough to guess. Ashley 2008, the year our daughter was born. It worked. Her email revealed the full scope of the relationship. Hundreds of messages between Emma and Brandon. Mixing romantic planning with business coordination, speaker fee arrangements, device order confirmations, travel plans disguised as pharmaceutical conferences. One email from 3 months ago made my hands shake. Brandon, the Birmingham hospital contract is locked in. $340,000 in device orders over 6 months with your continued participation in our speaker program. Mike still doesn't suspect anything. He thinks I'm just good at my job. The custody attorney says Tennessee courts favor relocation when there's a significant career opportunity. Everything is falling into place. My wife had been using our marriage as cover while building a business conspiracy with her lover, planning to take my children to another state using money she'd fraudulently obtained through healthcare kickbacks. I printed the emails and secured copies on a flash drive. James Parker was right. This was bigger than an affair. I was about to close the laptop when I noticed another folder labeled Financial Planning. Inside were spreadsheets tracking the cash accumulation in the storage unit, lists of assets Emma planned to claim in divorce proceedings, and a timeline for relocating to Nashville. According to her planning, Emma intended to file for divorce in January, claim custody of the children based on her higher recent income, and relocate to Tennessee within 6 months. The affair with Brandon wasn't impulsive. It was a business plan. My phone rang. Emma, hi honey. Her voice was cheerful. Normal. I'm leaving Nashville now. Should be home by 8. How are the kids today? Fine. I managed. Jordan has practice until 7:30. Perfect. I'll be home in time to help Ashley with her homework. Love you. She hung up before I could respond. Love you. The words felt like glass. I had 2 hours before Emma returned. I spent them copying financial records, documenting travel patterns, and building a comprehensive file of evidence. By the time I left to pick up Jordan, I had enough material to prove systematic fraud spanning 2 years. Jordan chatted excitedly about practice during the drive home, unaware that his world was about to change. As we pulled into our driveway, I saw Emma's car in the garage. Mom's home, Jordan said, jumping out. I followed him inside, my throat tight. Emma was in the kitchen, still wearing her professional attire, a navy suit that I'd never seen before. How was Nashville? I asked, proud that my voice sounded normal. Productive. Great sales meeting. She kissed my cheek with the same lips that had been kissing Brandon for 2 years. I'm starving. Should we order pizza? I nodded, watching her move around our kitchen with practiced ease. She looked exactly like the woman I'd married. Sounded like the mother of my children. Acted like she belonged in our home. But she was a stranger. Ashley came downstairs and we sat around the kitchen table eating pizza and discussing school, sports, weekend plans, the ordinary conversation of a normal family. Emma asked about Ashley's physics project, encouraged Jordan about his upcoming game, mentioned her busy schedule for the following week. All of it was performance. After dinner, Ashley and Jordan disappeared to their rooms for homework. Emma and I cleaned up together, our movements synchronized by years of shared routine. "You're quiet tonight," she said, loading the dishwasher. "Long day, big NASA project deadline coming up." "I know how that feels. This Tennessee expansion is wearing me out," she paused. "Actually, there might be some bigger opportunities coming up. Career advancement stuff. We should talk about it soon." Career advancement. Moving to Nashville to join Brandon's medical practice. "Sure," I said. "Whenever you're ready." That night, lying in bed next to Emma, I stared at the ceiling while she slept peacefully beside me. The woman I'd shared a bed with for 17 years was planning to leave me, take my children, and start a new life funded by federal healthcare fraud. I got up carefully and went to my office. I had calls to make. The next morning, Emma left early for hospital rounds, which I now knew meant meetings with Brandon. After the kids left for school, I called Rebecca Foster. "I have much more evidence," I told her. "This is definitely federal health care fraud. Bring everything to my office. I'm setting up a meeting with James Parker and a federal prosecutor I know." 2 hours later, I sat in a conference room with Rebecca James and Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Williams, a sharp woman in her 40s who specialized in health care fraud prosecution. "Mr. Thompson," Sarah said after reviewing the evidence, "what you've uncovered appears to be a systematic violation of federal anti-AR kickback statutes, stark law provisions, and potentially False Claims Act violations." She spread out the emails I'd printed. "Your wife and Dr. Brandon Walsh have been using their romantic relationship to influence medical device purchases funded by Medicare and other federal programs. The speaker fees, the coordinated orders, the travel expenses. This is exactly the kind of scheme our office prosecutes. What happens now? We open a federal investigation. The FBI will coordinate with the Department of Health and Human Services Office of Inspector General. We'll need your cooperation, but I want you to understand once this starts, we can't control the timing or the outcome." I thought about Ashley and Jordan. "My children don't know any of this. We understand. We'll be as discreet as possible during the investigation phase, but Mr. Thompson, if your wife is planning to relocate your children using proceeds from healthcare fraud, you may not have time to wait." Sarah opened a file folder. "Based on the evidence you've provided, we can get warrants for surveillance, financial records, and communications. We can also coordinate with Alabama state authorities on the identity fraud aspects." "How long does something like this take?" "Healthcare fraud investigations can take months or years, but the evidence you've provided is unusually comprehensive. If Dr. Walsh and your wife have been as careless as these emails suggest, we might move more quickly." James Parker leaned forward. "Mike, there's another consideration. Your wife's behavior suggests she's planning to accelerate her timeline. If she suspects you're getting suspicious, she might try to leave sooner than planned." "What do you mean?" "Take the kids on a weekend trip that turns permanent. Empty the bank accounts and disappear. The cash you found, the custody attorney consultations. She's prepared for a quick exit." Sarah nodded. "We've seen this pattern before. I recommend we begin surveillance immediately and prepare for the possibility that your wife might attempt to flee with the children." The word flee hit me like a physical blow. My children could be kidnapped by their own mother. What can I do to protect them? "Continue acting normally," Sarah said. "Don't let your wife know you've discovered anything. We'll have agents monitoring her movements and communications. If she attempts to leave Alabama with the children without your permission, we can intervene." I left the meeting with a phone number for a federal agent and instructions to report any suspicious behavior immediately. The next phase of Emma's life would be under federal surveillance. That evening, Emma announced she had another conference the following week. "Where?" I asked. Atlanta Medical Device Symposium, 3 days. I nodded casually, but my heart was racing. Was this another meeting with Brandon, or was she planning something more significant? After Emma went to bed, I called the federal agent, Maria Rodriguez. Agent Rodriguez, Emma just announced a 3-day trip to Atlanta next week. We'll be monitoring if it's a legitimate business trip. No problem. If it's something else, we'll know. The weekend passed normally on the surface. Emma attended Ashley's soccer game, took Jordan shopping for basketball shoes, cooked Sunday dinner for the family, but I watched her differently now, noting small details I'd previously missed. The way she checked her phone constantly, but angled it away from me. The frequency of her work calls that required privacy, the designer clothes I'd never seen her purchase, the expensive jewelry she claimed were company rewards. Monday morning, Emma packed for Atlanta. As she loaded her suitcase into her car, I noticed she packed more than necessary for a 3-day trip. Travel safe, I said, kissing her goodbye. Always do, she replied. 2 hours later, Agent Rodriguez called, Mr. Thompson, your wife didn't go to Atlanta. She drove to Nashville and checked into a hotel with Dr. Walsh. We've been monitoring both of them. My heart sank. What are they doing? Unknown yet, but our surveillance team is in place. We'll know if this is more than just another romantic meeting. I tried to focus on work, but concentration was impossible. Every phone call could bring news that Emma was attempting to flee with Ashley and Jordan. Every text message could be the beginning of the end. Tuesday afternoon, Agent Rodriguez called with an update. Your wife and Dr. Walsh met with a real estate agent in Nashville. They looked at houses in Belm, including one with enough bedrooms for children. They also visited a private school and toured the facilities. They were house hunting, shopping for schools, making concrete plans to relocate my children. Agent Rodriguez, how long before they act on these plans? Based on the evidence, probably soon. We found out that Dr. Walsh has been negotiating a partnership with a cardiology practice in Nashville. Your wife has been interviewing for device sales positions there. They're building the infrastructure for a permanent relocation. That evening, Emma called from Atlanta. How's the conference? I asked. Excellent. Learning about new stent technologies. Might be here an extra day. Great networking opportunities. Every word was a lie. Sure, the kids miss you. Give them my love. Tell them I'll bring back something special. She hung up and I sat in my empty kitchen, overwhelmed by the enormity of her deception. Wednesday brought more disturbing news. Agent Rodriguez reported that Emma and Brandon had visited a Nashville divorce attorney and discussed custody law concerning interstate relocation. Mr. Thompson, we need to accelerate our timeline. Your wife is finalizing plans to leave Alabama with your children. What do you recommend? We're going to arrest both your wife and Dr. Walsh on federal healthcare fraud charges. The timing will be coordinated to prevent any flight risk. My hands trembled. When? Tomorrow. Your wife is scheduled to return home Thursday evening. We'll take them both into custody simultaneously. Her in Alabama, him in Tennessee. I hung up and stared at my hands. Tomorrow, my wife would be arrested by federal agents. My children would learn that their mother was a criminal. Our life as we knew it would end. That night, I called my sister in Birmingham. Kelly, I need you to be prepared to help with Ashley and Jordan. Emma's in serious trouble. What kind of trouble? Federal criminal trouble. I can't explain everything right now, but they might need to stay with you temporarily. Of course. I sank into a chair. What happens now? She'll have an initial appearance before a federal magistrate tomorrow morning. Given the flight risk and the evidence of planning to relocate with the children, we'll recommend detention without bond. Ashley looked up from her homework. Dad, who was that? I took a deep breath. Kids, we need to talk. The next hour was the hardest of my life. I sat my children down and explained that their mother had been arrested, that she'd been having an affair, that she'd been involved in illegal activities, and that our family was going to change in ways we couldn't yet understand. Ashley cried. Jordan was confused. Both were angry, scared, and full of questions I couldn't fully answer. Why did Mom do this? Ashley asked. I don't know, honey. I wish I had better answers. Are we going to be okay? Jordan wanted to know. Yes, we're going to be okay. It's going to be different, but we're going to be okay. That night, I tucked my children into bed and tried to project strength I didn't feel. Their world had collapsed, but I had to be their foundation. The next morning's newspaper carried the story. Local pharmaceutical rep arrested in federal health care fraud scheme. The details were sparse, but the damage to our family's reputation was immediate. Emma's arraignment was a brief formal procedure. She appeared in an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. She didn't make eye contact with me in the courtroom. The federal prosecutor outlined the charges: conspiracy to violate anti-R kickback statutes, wire fraud, money laundering, and False Claims Act violations. The potential sentence was up to 20 years in federal prison. Emma's attorney requested bond, but the prosecutor argued that she was a flight risk who had been planning to relocate out of state with minor children using proceeds from criminal activity. The magistrate agreed and ordered Emma detained pending trial. As the deputies led her away, Emma finally looked at me. Her expression was unreadable. Part regret, part defiance, part fear. Outside the courthouse, reporters asked for comments. I declined and drove home to face my children's questions. The investigation moved quickly after the arrests. Federal agents executed search warrants on Emma's office, Brandon's medical practice, and our home. They seized computers, financial records, and communications equipment. The scope of the fraud was staggering. Over 2 years, Emma and Brandon had generated more than $500,000 in fraudulent speaker fees and kickbacks. Medicare and private insurers had been billed for unnecessary procedures using Emma's devices. Patient care had been compromised by medical decisions influenced by personal relationships rather than medical necessity. The media coverage was extensive. Local television stations reported on the shocking fraud scheme involving a prominent local pharmaceutical representative and a respected cardiologist. Our family photos appeared on the evening news. Ashley was mortified. Everyone at school is talking about it. Jordan was angry. Why did Mom ruin everything? I had no good answers. How do you explain to children that their mother chose money and a lover over their family's welfare? The civil consequences followed quickly. Emma's employer, Medtronic, terminated her immediately and filed suit to recover bonuses and commissions paid during the fraud period. The hospital revoked Brandon's privileges and reported him to the state medical board. His license was suspended pending the criminal proceedings. The divorce process was complicated by Emma's incarceration. I filed for dissolution based on adultery and criminal conduct, seeking full custody of the children and an unequal division of assets to account for the marital funds Emma had diverted to her criminal enterprise. Rebecca Foster was blunt about our prospects. Given the criminal convictions and the evidence of dissipation of marital assets, you should receive the majority of the marital property and uncontested custody. What about the money in the storage unit? That will likely be subject to federal forfeit as proceeds of criminal activity. But the legitimate marital assets, the house, your retirement accounts, other savings, those should be protected. 3 months later, Emma accepted a plea agreement. She would serve 7 years in federal prison in exchange for her cooperation against Brandon and testimony about the extent of their fraud scheme. Brandon refused to plea and went to trial. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails, financial records, patient files showing unnecessary procedures, testimony from other medical device representatives about Emma and Brandon's behavior at industry conferences. The jury convicted Brandon on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 10 years in federal prison and ordered restitution of $1.20 $2 million to defrauded insurance programs. During the sentencing hearing, I was allowed to provide a victim impact statement. Your Honor, I said, Dr. Walsh didn't just defraud insurance companies and compromise patient care. He conspired to destroy my family, steal my children, and use criminal proceeds to finance a new life built on lies and betrayal. His actions have traumatized 2 innocent children who will spend years recovering from the damage he and my wife inflicted. Emma's sentencing was scheduled for the following month. I attended with Ashley and Jordan, who wanted to see their mother one last time before she went to federal prison. Emma was thin, pale, and looked years older than her 41 years. During her statement to the court, she finally showed genuine emotion. Your Honor, I destroyed my family for money and temporary happiness. I betrayed my husband, traumatized my children, and violated the trust of patients who depended on medical decisions made in their best interest, not mine. I take full responsibility for my actions, and I understand that I've lost the right to be part of my children's daily lives. She looked at Ashley and Jordan in the gallery. I love you both more than anything in the world, and I'm sorry for what I've done to our family. The judge sentenced Emma to 7 years in federal prison, ordered restitution of $400,000, and banned her permanently from working in health care or pharmaceutical sales. As the deputies led Emma away, Ashley and Jordan remained stoic. They'd already mourned the loss of the mother they thought they knew. The civil divorce was finalized 6 months later. I received the house, primary custody of the children, and the majority of our financial assets. Emma would have supervised visitation rights after her release from prison, but only if she completed counseling and maintained stable employment. The storage unit was sealed by federal agents and its contents forfeited as evidence of criminal activity. The shrine to Emma's double life was now government property. Life after Emma's imprisonment was challenging but ultimately liberating. Ashley and Jordan adapted remarkably well to our new normal. Ashley threw herself into her engineering studies. Inspired to pursue aerospace like her father, Jordan channeled his anger into athletics and emerged as a team leader. I focused on rebuilding our family's reputation and creating stability for my children. The community response was surprisingly supportive. Most people recognized that we were victims, not accomplices. My security clearance was not affected by Emma's criminal activity. If anything, my cooperation with federal authorities and my voluntary reporting of suspicious activity enhanced my professional standing. I was promoted to senior program manager and given expanded responsibilities on classified NASA contracts. 6 months after Emma's sentencing, I was contacted by Agent Rodriguez, who had moved to a supervisory position at the FBI. Mike, I wanted you to know that your cooperation was instrumental in exposing a much larger fraud network. Emma and Brandon weren't the only ones. Our investigation led to charges against 12 other individuals and recovered more than $8 million in fraudulent payments. I was proud that our family's tragedy had contributed to protecting other patients and taxpayers from health care fraud. A year later, I met Rebecca Turner at a Chamber of Commerce event. She was a federal compliance officer for the Department of Health and Human Services, working to prevent the kinds of fraud schemes that had destroyed my family. We began dating slowly, carefully. Rebecca understood the complexities of my situation and respected the priority I placed on Ashley and Jordan's well-being. 2 years after Emma's arrest, I was elected to the Huntsville City Council on a platform of government transparency and economic development. My experience with federal law enforcement had given me insights into how local government could work more effectively with federal agencies to protect taxpayers and promote ethical business practices. Ashley graduated high school as valedictorian and was accepted to Auburn University's aerospace engineering program. Jordan became team captain of his high school basketball team and maintained a 4.0 GPA. Emma sent letters from federal prison, but the children rarely responded. The woman who had given birth to them was a stranger now, someone whose choices had forfeited her right to influence their lives. 3 years into Emma's sentence, I married Rebecca in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Ashley and Jordan were supportive, recognizing that Rebecca's integrity and transparency were qualities their biological mother had lacked. Emma was eligible for release after serving 5.5 years of her 7-year sentence. By then, Ashley would be graduating from college, and Jordan would be starting his senior year of high school. They would be adults capable of deciding for themselves whether to have a relationship with their mother. I hoped Emma would use her time in prison to develop genuine insight into the damage she'd caused, but I no longer felt responsible for her rehabilitation or redemption. My focus was on the family we were building and the community we were serving. The storage unit that had revealed Emma's double life was eventually auctioned by the government. I didn't attend the sale. I had no interest in reclaiming any artifacts from that chapter of our lives. Instead, I bought a new storage unit near our house. This one contained normal family items, holiday decorations, sporting equipment, college memorabilia, the kinds of things that accumulate in a healthy, honest household. Sometimes Ashley or Jordan would ask about the period before Emma's arrest, trying to understand how they'd missed the signs of their mother's deception. I reminded them that deception was Emma's choice and her responsibility, not theirs. She worked very hard to fool all of us. I told them that's not a reflection of our intelligence or awareness. It's a reflection of her commitment to dishonesty. 5 years after the arrests, I spoke at a conference for aerospace contractors about integrity in government contracting. My presentation was titled The Personal Cost of Professional Ethics and focused on the responsibility government contractors have to report suspected fraud even when it affects their personal lives. When you discover corruption or criminal activity, I told the audience, you have a duty to report it regardless of the personal cost. Yes, my family paid a price for my cooperation with federal authorities, but thousands of Medicare patients and taxpayers were protected from ongoing fraud because we chose to do the right thing. After my presentation, a young engineer approached me. Mr. Thompson, I'm facing a similar situation. I suspect my supervisor is falsifying test data on a defense contract, but if I report it, I'll probably lose my job. I thought about Emma, Brandon, and the storage unit that had changed everything. Son, you'll lose more than your job if you stay silent. You'll lose your integrity, your security clearance, and your ability to look at yourself in the mirror. Report what you know and let the system work. The short-term cost is always less than the long-term consequences of staying silent. He thanked me and walked away, hopefully planning to make the right choice. That evening, I returned home to find Ashley packing for her senior year at Auburn and Jordan preparing for basketball tryouts. Rebecca was cooking dinner and helping both kids with their preparations. We sat around the same kitchen table where I'd first opened the storage unit bill 5 years earlier. But this was a different family now, one built on honesty, transparency, and shared values rather than deception and hidden agendas. Emma would be released from federal prison in 18 months. She would find a world that had moved on without her, children who had thrived in her absence, and an ex-husband who had transformed personal betrayal into public service. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, but I felt enormous pride in what Ashley, Jordan, and I had built from the ruins of her choices. After dinner, I walked through our house looking at family photos that now showed our real family, the people who had chosen to be honest with each other and build something authentic. There were no storage units full of secrets, no hidden bank accounts, no false identities, just a family that had learned the value of integrity through the painful experience of living with someone who lacked it. As I turned off the lights and prepared for bed, I thought about the storage unit that had started everything. Emma had intended it as a shrine to her escape from our family. Instead, it had become the evidence that preserved our family by exposing her crimes. Sometimes the truth sets you free in ways you never expected. The next morning brought news that Emma's early release request had been denied. She would serve her full sentence. Ashley was relieved. She wanted to start her career without the distraction of her mother's return. "Dad," she said over breakfast, "I've been thinking about Mom's situation." "What about it?" "I understand that she made terrible choices and I'm not excusing what she did, but I hope she gets the help she needs in prison to become a better person." Jordan nodded. "Yeah, maybe when she gets out, she'll be different, but we'll be different, too." I marveled at my children's maturity. They had learned to separate their mother's actions from their own worth, to hope for her redemption without depending on it for their own happiness. "You're both right," I said. "We can hope she becomes a better person while building our own lives on better principles." Rebecca joined us at the table, dressed for another day of investigating health care fraud for the federal government. "Any interesting cases this week?" I asked. "Always. Fraud never sleeps." She smiled. "But at least we know how to recognize it now." Ashley laughed. "Dad's the expert on recognizing fraud after Mom." It was the first time in years that anyone had joked about Emma's crimes. Maybe we were finally far enough from the trauma to find some humor in our survival. As my family prepared for their day, I reflected on how dramatically our lives had changed since that November morning when I'd opened a storage unit bill. Emma's betrayal had nearly destroyed us, but it had also taught us the value of honesty, the importance of integrity, and the strength that comes from facing hard truths together. The storage unit was empty now, auctioned off and repurposed. But the lessons it had taught us would last forever. Some people spend their whole lives wondering if their family members are honest with them. I would never have to wonder again. The people sitting around my breakfast table had proven their integrity through the hardest test imaginable. That was worth more than any amount of money Emma could have stolen, any affair she could have hidden, or any new life she could have built on lies. We had chosen truth over comfort, justice over convenience, and integrity over family loyalty. The cost had been enormous, but the foundation we'd built was unshakable. As I drove to work that morning, I passed the storage facility where everything had started. New units were being rented, new stories were beginning, new secrets were probably being stored. But our secrets were out, our lies were exposed, and our truth was finally our own. I had no idea what Emma was doing in federal prison that morning, but I hoped she was learning what I had learned. That honesty is the only foundation strong enough to build a life worth living. The storage unit was empty, but our lives were full.